On this video, we are going to talk about cortisol, and we're going to talk about why it causes you to gain weight, and we're going to talk about 3 supplements you can use to reduce cortisol and help you start to lose weight. Yes, that's how powerful these 3 are. So let's dive in to all the ways cortisol is making you gain weight and what you can do about it. Simple things you can do about it. First thing, I want to start this discussion with this idea. Cortisol is the hormone that is released in your body when there is a perceived stress. So your body has to think that there is a stressor that is going to kill it. We call it running from a tiger. So that stressor can come in many different forms. So you can be stressed because of a thought. You're just sitting and a thought comes to you and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, that's so stressful. And then your body releases cortisol. You can be stressed from an interaction with a human. You can be stressed because you're overloaded with work. You can be stressed for, because of challenges in your life and things you're going through. There's a lot of stressors that increase cortisol. But what I want you to realize is that as long as cortisol is in your system, your body thinks it's running from a tiger and it will not burn fat. So you have 2 sides of the weight loss coin with cortisol. On one side, it stops weight loss. On the other side, if you are constantly secreting cortisol, that cortisol has to go somewhere. And so your body stores it as fat, specifically as belly fat. So it's really important that we see this intertwined process of cortisol and weight gain. And I also want to, before I dive into these 3 supplements, I want to remind you that cortisol is the hormone that is the stress hormone that is meant to make you move. It wants you to get up and go. So every time cortisol comes into your body, whether you're on a phone call, you're at your computer, you're at your desk, if you stay seated, all of that cortisol goes to belly fat much quicker than if you're like, oop, I just had a stressful moment, I'm going to go walk. Just get up, walk, move around. You don't have to go far. It helps you use cortisol. Now, with that in mind, 3 supplements I want to talk a bit about fall under one category, and that category is adaptogens. Adaptogens are exactly what they sound like. They help you adapt to stress. So just like I've been teaching you all metabolic switching, where you go from sugar burner to fat burner, when it comes to stress, we need to go from rest and digest into fight or flight. We need to be able to do both. But when our whole cortisol system, our stress hormone system, our HPA axis is constantly under fire, we don't switch in and out of these 2 states. We stay locked in fight or flight. So what an adaptogen does is it helps you learn how to switch into a restful time and switch back into a more stressful time, and then back into rest and then back into stress. So it gives you that ability to switch in and out. That is helpful. So the first one I want to bring to your attention is ashwagandha. This is one of my favorite. I actually really like ashwagandha. I get ashwagandha in some of the mocktails that are out there right now. A lot of people are moving into adaptogens that are in drinks that you can replace alcohol with. And a lot of those have ashwagandha in it. You'll start to see that if you start to look at the ingredient label. And what's interesting about ashwagandha is that it is a native shrub to India and parts of Africa. Its roots, the root of ashwagandha, has been used in Indian traditional medicine for years. And it's rich in a bioactive compound that is called withanolides. Now, withanolides, they act as a natural sedative. So, you take a prescription to relax you. Ashwagandha works very similarly because of this natural sedative component. But these withanolides are really interesting because studies are showing that they normalize the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So what is that? The HPA axis is that when your brain perceives a stress, whether you're looking at a stress or you're thinking about a stress, your hypothalamus sends a message to the pituitary and says, hey, pituitary, we got a tiger. We're running from a tiger. So we need to call on the adrenals to make cortisol. And so that all of a sudden you start getting cortisol pumping through your system. What these withanolides do is they will bring balance back to this HPA axis, because what is happening to a lot of us is that we get in these stressful states, but then the stress is gone, but our HPA axis is still running itself. So if you're somebody who feels like you've been under a lot of stress for a long period of time, I really want to encourage you that it might be that something like ashwagandha can really help to reset and normalize this HPA axis. We also have some scientific evidence that show that withanolides decrease your cortisol within your blood. They can lower stress and anxiety, but they really bring down the cortisol in your blood. So they don't just normalize the HPA axis, but they're actually having an effect on lowering cortisol. Now, a couple of things to note is that ashwagandha doesn't taste very good. It actually doesn't smell very good, which is why it doesn't taste very good. So you want it to be in a capsule form. Although I will tell you, I've been getting ashwagandha in a lot of drinks and they've been tasting fine. So I don't know what they're doing in those drinks, but if you get it as a powder, it does have, ashwagandha is actually Sanskrit for horse smell. So you might, if you don't want it to smell like barnyard animals, you may want to get it in capsule and avoid the raw version. So that's ashwagandha, one of my favorite. Okay, number 2, another personal favorite and one that I've used often is Kava Root. Kava Root is native to the South Pacific Islands in Hawaii. It is high in a compound called kava lactones. Now, kava lactones activate GABA. So if you guys have been following me, I've been teaching you about how progesterone activates GABA. I've talked to you about how ketones activate GABA. Those of you who've been in a longer fast and you start to feel that like calm that kicks in, that's GABA. Well, Kava Root can activate GABA. It actually specifically activates a receptor site called the GABA-A receptor, and it's in your brain. And it's the same receptor site, by the way, that is activated with anti-anxiety medications. So this is not, again, we have got to come back to what the earth has provided for us and give it some credit. And Kava Root deserves a tremendous amount of credit. So there is also some really interesting studies on GABA. One that was done in the Journal of Human Psychopharmacology. Researchers gave kava to people with insomnia and due to chronic stress. So put in the comments if you're one of those people. I know I can be one of those people that if I've had a lot of stress in my life, that my brain starts running all the problems and the solutions. So this group, what they did is they gave them kava before bed to stop that running brain. And what they found is that the kava decreased serum cortisol, brought cortisol down. And the person self-reported that stress levels went down. And when those two things happened, so stress went down and serum cortisol went down, the quality of their sleep went up. So we also know that kava has been this is a new one for me that I've been really thinking about when it comes to just overall health. And that is that kava can also increase liver detoxification. And so when you look at your liver and the functionality of your liver, what we know is that the liver burns fat. We know that the liver breaks down hormones, and it also is a massive detoxifier. It is pushing toxins out of our system. And so we need our good liver health, and kava can help that. So this is, again, really a cool thing when those of you that are trying to give up alcohol at night. What about getting a kava drink? And you can, not only is it going to upregulate GABA, not only is it going to bring down cortisol, but it's going to help support your liver. So now you've got an alternative to something where the liver was being destroyed by alcohol. Now the liver is being supported by kava. So something to really think about. Now, I do want to give you like a special note about kava. I think it's kind of the fun part about kava, but you might not like it. So I just want to say this, is that it can make your tongue go numb. And so if that happens, don't panic, because it'll go away in a couple of minutes. And there's a lot of different places you can order kava. I know you all are going to ask me, just find some kava root online, make sure it's organic. And there's kava powder. You can just put it in water, and you'd be shocked how quickly it dissolves in water and can act like a hot tea. There's even kava bars now that have opened up where people can go and drink kava in a bar-like setting. It's really cool. It's a really cool root if you haven't tried it. Okay, number 3 for helping you with chronic stress and bringing that cortisol down so you can start to lose weight. And this one's really exciting. It's ginseng. Now, ginseng is interesting because it's an adaptogenic root. It's native to Korea, China, and North America. It is rich in something called ginsenosides. Ginsenosides are incredibly important for increasing your body's resilience to stress. Let's talk about this for a moment. Your body's, when it perceives it needs to run from the tiger, cortisol isn't just making you fat and being stored in your belly. Cortisol is not just winding up the brain, but I like to equate cortisol to like sludge. It is like slowing down blood flow. It is moving into areas and completely destroying healthy tissue, like if there was waste, like sewage, that was being poured into the system. It destroys every single cell in your body and every organ system. So with ginseng, because it's high in these ginsenosides, it can increase your body's resilience to that. So remember, I've done some videos on antioxidants, and why antioxidants are so important is because they block oxidative stress. The reason adaptogens like ginseng are so important is because they protect healthy tissue from the damages of cortisol. Now, really interesting 2010 review in Current Vascular Pharmacology found ginsenosides have multiple benefits. So let me read to you what they are. They are powerful vasodilators. So they relax your arteries and your blood vessels to improve blood flow. They bring inflammation down. They are an antioxidant, so they protect you from that oxidative stress that we've been talking about. They lower cortisol, and they can regulate your fight or flight response. So remember, a lot of us are stuck in this fight or flight response. And so we need something to help us move us back in, and something like ginseng can do that. Guess what? Age Like a Girl, my new book. It's ready for pre-orders. And this is the most personal book I have ever written. And I'm so excited to bring it to you. If you are looking to reinvent yourself through the menopause process, or maybe you're on the other side and you're still looking for that reinvention, I'm going to show you exactly why menopause works in your favor and how you can make it your greatest moment yet. Age Like a Girl. There was a really interesting 2023 study in ginseng research, a journal specific to ginseng research, where they gave adults either ginseng or a placebo for 8 weeks. And they measured their cortisol and neurotransmitters levels, and here's what they found. The placebo group showed no significant changes. The ginseng group saw a significantly lower cortisol level. But they also saw that it lowered epinephrine. Epinephrine is the neurotransmitter that ignites and activates your fight or flight system. Cortisol is the hormone that keeps you in that fight or flight. epinephrine is the one that activates it and moves you into fight or flight. And finally, this is the best part of the ginseng story, is that they found that the group that took ginseng had a higher level of serotonin, which improves mood. Okay, this is pretty cool, because what we know is that when we're in a state of stress, not only is cortisol going up, not only are we activating epinephrine, but our moods are low. And so if we can upregulate serotonin and we're happier, it technically can take us quickly out of the fight or flight stress state. So ginseng, good old fashioned ginseng. So, and the last thing that I just want to point out is that, before I go into our Q&A, is that cortisol and stress in this day and age is almost like our default mode. This is happening to us so quickly. We don't even realize it. It's the classic frog in the boiling water. That if a water if you haven't heard the story, that if you take a frog and you put it in boiling water, it will jump out. But if you take a frog and you put it in water and then gently heat that water up until a boiling point, it doesn't realize that it's in boiling water and it will die. We are doing the same thing with stress. We do not understand that we are in this chronic stress state that is killing us. I see it all the time in my fasting community where people they'll get stuck with a result because their cortisol is saturated. So the reason I want to do a video like this is, for some of us, it's easier to take an adaptogen. We can find ginseng. We can go get kava. We can pop into ashwagandha. These things in the past used to be considered frivolous or woo-woo or some kind of shamanic tool. No, these things have hard science to them. How are you incorporating them into your daily life to be able to balance your cortisol system so that you stop killing yourself? I mean, literally. So think about that when you're going through this video. And maybe send this video to somebody you know who's completely cortisol saturated. Okay, here's the questions that I received. So, if cortisol levels stay elevated at night, can this disrupt my sleep? And what strategies can help lower it before bed? Yeah, I can tell you that my favorite cortisol reduction strategy that is quick is walking. I often go for a night walk. It brings the cortisol down for the day. So walking is my preferred, because when you walk, that bilateral stimulation, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, what that does is it signals to the brain and it tells the brain, we're running away from the tiger. You don't need to worry. We've got it under control. And that signal turns down cortisol. Second thing is that there's great research showing that even looking at nature can bring cortisol down. So maybe, on your TV now, you can get beautiful pictures of nature. Maybe you put something up on YouTube and just flash up a beautiful picture of nature so that you have nature and even the sound of nature. Maybe putting some bird music on, or putting some classical music has been shown to bring cortisol down. A lot of music actually has a cortisol reduction effect on it. So you might look at that before you go to bed, as opposed to what we do, which is hop on the phone, look at social media, and do more work, watch a cortisol scary movie, thriller. Think about what you're doing before you go to bed, and you can really bring that cortisol down so you sleep better. Okay, question number 2 is, how does chronic stress weaken my immune system? And what steps can I take to maintain or boost my immune system? Okay, well, that's an interesting one, because what I want you to know is the same reason that your body can't burn fat while it's under stress, it's also not protecting your immune system. It's back to the primal tiger. You were designed like our primal friends. That design has not changed, even though we live in a modern world. And so what has happened is that you, under stress, your body thinks it's running from a tiger and it shuts down your immune system, which is why stressed out people catch colds more. So if you want to maintain or boost your immune system, you need to pull yourself out of stress. We've talked a lot about that today. So these adaptogens can be incredibly helpful. Being aware of when stress hits, can you just go for a walk? So you use cortisol, immersing yourself in nature, hanging around people with positive attitudes, making sure you're taking breaks from stress and prioritizing recovery and rest. These all can be really helpful tools to lower your stress loads and improve your immune system. So do not lose sight of that. There's a long list of state changers in my book, Eat Like a Girl, you can go look at. But absolutely high cortisol levels and a weakened immune system go hand in hand. Okay, and then the last is, why do I sometimes feel a crash in energy or wake up tired if cortisol is supposed to help regulate alertness? Yes. So there are 3 different patterns of your cortisol system. There's an acute, there is a transitory, I'm going to call it, and there is chronic. The acute reaction to stress, there is something, let's actually put it this way. There is something called the polyvagal theory. And the polyvagal theory says we're supposed to dip into stress and then dip out. That would be your acute stress. Acute stress is where you get stress in doses, but you're able to balance back. Transitory stress is where you're transitioning into a chronic stress state, where you're spending more time in a stress state than a relaxed state. In this state, you are cortisol saturated. Your HPA axis has been working a lot. And this is the beginning of where stress is not giving you energy. In acute stress, you have a great energy. And you get a pulse of cortisol, and all of a sudden you're wound up and you're energized. In transitory stress state, in that in-between state, you're moving towards stress, tanking your energy. So a really good measurement for where you are on the stress level is to think about that. Think about, do I get energized when I'm stressed, or do I actually does my energy tank? Am I getting tired with stress? Another tool that I used to teach my patients in my clinic all the time was when you go from sitting to standing, do you get dizzy? If you go from sitting to standing and get dizzy, it means your adrenals are a little sluggish because they control that positional blood pressure, and that you're moving towards a chronic stress state. So the polyvagal theory was like, as humans, we should dip in and out of stress, which is your acute stress stage. That transitory stress means things are getting bad for you, and you're starting to get fatigued, you get dizzy, things like that. Now we move into the chronic stress. Chronic stress state is where you have been in fight or flight for so long, your body is starting to shut down. This is something called the freeze mode. And that's what the polyvagal theory is that you have now hit freeze mode. And freeze mode is where your body goes, gosh, I've been under stress for so long that I am going to shut all systems down. It's going to shut your metabolic system, your hormonal system. It's going to shut your immune system down. You will not be awake. You will feel numb. You will feel exhausted. You will want to withdraw. That person who is depressed and overwhelmed, they typically are in the freeze state. So when you ask me the question of where am I in this? I just want you to know that there is a spectrum of stress that you can consider for yourself. And that spectrum of stress is important to know where you are. If you are energized by stress, you're in the acute phase. If you are kind of tanked by stress, if stressful news makes you feel a little low in energy, you're in the transitory state. But if stress actually makes you exhausted. You are in the chronic freeze state, and it's an SOS from your body that it's time to prioritize your nervous system. It's time to get you back into a state of a balanced nervous system. And hopefully you're understanding in videos like this, hopefully you're understanding that adaptogens can do it. That's why it's really cool to bring you this video and to talk about something like adaptogens that might help pull you out of that chronic stress state. The last thing I want to say on stress is that we want to make sure we don't stack our stress. So this is why with fasting, we cycle fasting. We don't just fast all the time because it gets too much cortisol. If you're in a stress state and you're fasting all the time, that's a stacking of two stressful habits that can start to move you towards this freeze mode. This is why women don't fast when progesterone is coming in, because when cortisol is up, it tanks the hormonal system. This is why those of you that are struggling to lose weight and you've been doubling down on your weight loss efforts and it's not getting easier, this is why we don't try harder. We soften. We sometimes have to rest our body. We sometimes have to stop fasting. We have to stop working out so much, and we have to go a little more into a state of recovery and rest. So know that a lot of times, a lot of really good things all stacked together actually become bad things. So don't fall prey to exercise being an anti-stressor, because exercise done in an extreme way with extreme fasting, with extreme life stress is incredibly harmful to your body. So it's called stacking stress, and I want to make sure that you are not falling prey to it. So, as always, I hope all of this helps. I am here to teach you about how miraculous your body is. I hope you're getting that. I want you to feel empowered. I do feel like we're at an evolutionary mismatch right now with the modern world, especially when it comes to talking about things like stress. But I know lifestyle is our door out. We're not going to find the magic pill. I mean, these are good starts. But in general, we need to make sure that you are building a lifestyle that has, just like metabolic switching, it has the ability to move from parasympathetic to sympathetic, to move in and out of stress and no stress. And if you're struggling with that, try some of the techniques that I gave you here. So, as always, I hope this helps, and I appreciate being on your health journey with you. Have an awesome day. On the next video, it's called Do This Before You Sleep to Avoid Belly Fat. And there's habits you want to do the night before, and there's habits you want to do in the morning, and all of those make a big difference. Make sure your room is cool. If our mattress is cool, if the room is cool, it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. This is a little bit like cold plunges.